Hello everyone, how is it going? Now, in this video, I will be talking about my unsuccessful experience with working things out with OCD. Now, I truly spent years trying to solve, trying to analyze, trying to get to the bottom of things, replaying things in my head, solving, reviewing, trying to find the answer, because I was adamant that the only way that I'd be able to get relief would be by working something out. Whether that is an event from when I was 12 years old, whether that would have been an event from yesterday, 5 minutes ago, whatever it was, I thought if I can get the answer, then I can be at peace. But do not underestimate the realness of OCD and how convincing it will feel. Even when we know that we won't be able to work it out because you may have been stuck for years trying to work it out, it will convince you that this one is different, that this one requires urgent, immediate attention, that this one means you are the exception, that this one is real, and therefore this one needs addressing and solving and replaying and ruminating over to get to the bottom of. And that's what it will do. And the only way around that is by breaking down, even if it were real. Now, people don't like hearing that. And people often come on these calls, come on coaching calls, and I can often detect some reassurance in their disputing, which is to be expected initially, of course, because when we're very terrified of the fears, when we dispute, we tend to say, yeah, okay, but I still didn't do anything wrong, and it's definitely just my OCD. You can't say that, I'm afraid, because OCD is going to cut through that like a knife through butter, I'm afraid. And it's going to say, nope, it doesn't matter if you've done nothing wrong. You have done this, and that's all there is to it. You even thought about it, so that's it. You are going to have chronic guilt for the rest of your life, and you can never be let off the hook, ever. And you deserve to be punished eternally for the rest of your life with mental torture and the tormenting cycle, and that's it. Bye. And that's how OCD can be. So it will take time to break that down, of course, but just want to talk to you about my experience with that. Now, every time OCD would hook me in, because although I knew I couldn't get relief, because I spent years, I truly spent years trying to solve, and it was quite clear, the evidence was there that I wouldn't be able to get relief, because even if I did get the illusion of certainty for one particular event or false memory or whatever it was I was trying to work out, even if I had some kind of illusionary certainty on it, that maybe I felt like I got to the bottom of it, maybe I finally found that missing piece of the puzzle, maybe I finally solved it, even though it may have felt like that initially, OCD would switch up, it would change, it would morph, it would manipulate, it would twist, it would put its own spin on things, and around we go again. The cycle starts once again. And that's never ending. And that is truly a never ending journey. And if I didn't apply unconditional self-acceptance, you wouldn't be talking to me today on this video. I'd still be trying to solve. I'd still be trying to work it out. I'd still be trying to get to the bottom of it. And you won't get to the bottom of it, I'm afraid. Save yourself the effort today. I'll tell you for a fact, you won't get to the bottom of it. You won't be able to get certainty. You won't be able to get an answer. You won't get relief that way. It's a futile pursuit, and you'll never be successful. It will remain unsuccessful your whole life, because OCD is calling the shots. OCD is in the driving seat. You're just a passenger in the back seat, right? OCD is calling all the shots. You can try and solve it, but OCD switches up because it knows what you're scared of, and it will convince you that it's real, because that's how this disorder operates. The realness, the conviction. It doesn't matter if you keep telling yourself you didn't do it, you didn't do it. And I'll give you some examples now. I'm just drinking this caramel latte, superb by the way, in my OCD mug. So just excuse me. Oh God, a bit hot still. Oh, I took a huge mouthful then and burned it off my mouth. Gotta be careful with that. But yeah, I'll give you some examples of how this would operate. So many times I'd be like, yeah, but Sam, I didn't do anything wrong. Trust me, I didn't do anything wrong. And I'll give you a great example of this. When I had a fear of assaulting somebody or touching somebody or whatever it was, just sort of making contact with somebody was a big fear of mine, because, oh my God, what happens if you do something wrong? What happens if you go to jail? What happens if, you cause some kind of conflict? What happens if you do something strange and immoral or taboo or whatever it may be? So that was a big fear of mine, especially walking in the street. Walking past somebody in the street, I had a big fear that I was going to make contact with them. And what I would do as a compulsion, I'd be crossing the road. I'd cross the road and I'd say, right, well, I clearly can't do that worst fear now, so I'm fine. I'm in the clear. I'm out of the woods. No, I'm afraid not. Because all that would happen is that OCD would say, yeah, but all right, you might have crossed the road, Sam, but how do you know? You even thought about that. You even had that intrusive urge. You had an intrusive thought. What happens if it was before you crossed the road? What happens if you crossed the road and you actually made contact with somebody else as you crossed the road? How do you know? So I'll be writing down going, yeah, but I haven't done anything wrong because I crossed the road. OCD is just laughing at me. It's making a mockery of me, because it's like, yeah, but how do you know? Because even quite clearly doing something physically avoidant like that didn't give me any relief, because OCD would cut through that. It would manipulate that. It would twist that. Okay, it doesn't work. Okay, this is why we have to go towards unconditional self-acceptance and breaking down, even if the worst case was true, even if it were real, even if it did happen. That is obviously very scary. And we have to remember that acceptance isn't agreement. Okay? But you can't out-convince OCD. You can't get into an argument with OCD. You can't disprove it. The OCD's in the driving seat. You can keep saying, yeah, but I crossed the road. It doesn't matter. OCD's going to say, nope, you did something wrong. There's the guilt. Locked on, firmly tight. You ain't going nowhere. You aren't going anywhere. You can't be let off the hook at all. You're going to be locked in and trapped forever, until you start going towards unconditional self-acceptance and thinking rationally about this. And even if the worst fear did happen, how you could still accept yourself, how you can have have compassion for yourself and respect yourself, and ultimately still move on from that, overcome that thing. How you can see how you're writing yourself off, how that isn't productive, how that isn't beneficial, how that isn't effective for you, how that doesn't provide any efficiency at all in your life, and seeing the drawbacks of writing yourself off. Even if you did do that, how you could rebuild your life, how you could overcome, how you could learn to be content, how you could learn to come to terms with that, right? It's scary, of course, but OCD is going after what you're scared of, right? So we have to change our beliefs on these worst case scenarios. Otherwise, OCD will continue to hammer you. Boom, 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 boom. I'll give you another example. People can walk around with their camera on, right? This is a very common OCD fear. They walk around with their camera on to make sure they haven't done anything wrong, right? And they can physically sit there and watch the camera footage over and over again. And they'll be like, all right, okay, the camera footage is fine. I've done nothing wrong. Does it work? Does it fuck? It does not work, I'm afraid. Of course it doesn't work. Why? Well, because your OCD cuts through that. And it says, but what if I did something before I turned the camera on? What as if the camera's lying to me? What as if this camera didn't capture this thing that actually proved I did do something wrong? What as if the footage has been compromised and I actually did do something wrong? It isn't going to work. And those compulsions that we do mean nothing, because OCD starts cutting through those compulsions. And you know you're in trouble when the compulsions you're doing don't even provide you relief. So the compulsions you're doing to run away from the anxiety, to alleviate the suffering, to get relief, to avoid whatever it is compulsively you're doing, when you're not even getting relief that way, you know you're going to have to change things. Because if the compulsions you're doing to combat or to deal with the symptoms aren't working, then what do? We have to make a change. We have to think, you know what? Forget that. Forget the avoidance. Put the camera down. Forget the constant analysing and replaying. I'm going to have to look to change beliefs here. I'm going to have to look to go towards unconditional self-acceptance. I'm going to have to look to confront my fears and face my fears. Otherwise, we keep doing compulsions, we keep adding fuel to the OCD fire, and OCD is just cutting through it each time. You will never get success working it out. And even if you got some momentarily certainty or some momentarily comfort on something and some temporary relief, I can assure you, OCD is looking for that next thing. It's looking for the next step. And I learnt that the hard way, trust me. With my lived experience, I learnt that the hard way. Halfway through confessing to my partner, OCD had already found something else in my head. And even if it hadn't found another event, it would be, yeah, but you didn't explain that particular thing properly, therefore you need to confess it all again. Yeah, but you said that word and you slightly raised your eyebrow at the same time. That means that means it didn't quite happen, or that means that you didn't quite explain how it actually happened. That means you've got to do it all over again. Or maybe your partner, whoever you confess to, they didn't quite understand what you meant. Therefore, you've got to say exactly what happened. It's like chasing the missing piece of the puzzle, the golden pot at the end of the rainbow. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion. It's a con. It's a scam. OCD is going to pull you into reaching out and grabbing it, grabbing certainty, you can finally reach out and work what happened. Finally, after all these years. I spent years trying to work out an event when I was 12 years old. You know, I was 18, I probably started about 17 years old, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, all through those years, just replaying an event from when I was 12 years old. And each time I went to work it out, it was like, oh, I finally got relief. I finally got clarity. I finally got an answer. Woohoo, I can go and live my life. I can be at peace now. Yes. No chance. 5 minutes later, what about this? OCD had hit me with a different angle. It found a different way in. It came in through the back door. You fucker. Where did you come from, OCD? Fuck. It hit me from a different angle. It found a way. It found a different way to convince me why what I just figured out was false, and why it did actually happen, and why you should be sentenced to a lifetime of guilt once again. And that's what OCD is going to do until we start breaking that cycle. Now, how do we start breaking that cycle? Well, I might sound like a broken record, but I need to say it again. To break the cycle, we have to stop engaging with the solving, with the working out. We've got to disengage. We've got to allow it to be present. Okay, imagine in your in your head, you've got the automatic rumination, and imagine that like a radio playing out in the background. So that's playing out, that's playing out, that's playing out. Every time you go to tune in to listen to what song's playing on the radio, boom, you're engaged. You're trying to solve. You're going, oh, let me just turn the volume up. I need to work it out what it is. Boom, you're engaged. You're trying to work it out. So let the song play out. Let that rumination play out. Allow it to be present. And stop trying to solve. Stop trying to get an answer. Stop trying to tune into that frequency of the radio to figure out what song it is. That doesn't work. Okay? So allow that to be present. Disengage. Nick put it very well many years ago in one of his videos that he did about rumination. It's like going out in the rain and you're just allowing the rain to pour all over you. You're carrying on with your life. You're just allowing the rain to be there. Rumination's like that. Allow it to be present. Allow it to be there. You don't have to engage. You don't need to solve. You don't need to play a part. You don't need to join the party, if you wish. Let it be there. Now, over time, as we chip away at beliefs, this is where we come into it with the coaching calls, because you can't just let it play. You can't just let the radio play out. And that can be quite often the mainstream advice, is just to let the radio play out and let the thoughts be there. That doesn't cut it. Of course, initially it's key, yes, but you have to look at, why is the radio playing out? Why is the rumination there? Well, it's happening because you're absolutely fucking terrified of something. And to get under that, we have to start changing our beliefs around our core fears. We have to start applying unconditional self-acceptance, unconditional life acceptance, and also unconditional other acceptance as well, depending on what the fears could be. We have to start learning rational thinking and seeing our fears through a different lens, seeing it through compassion, seeing it through understanding and empathy and sympathy, rather than black and white, all or nothing, rigid, crooked, writing off thinking. Just know if that happens, I'm the worst person ever. If I've done that, I deserve to be miserable. I deserve to be punished eternally. I can't ever be happy. My life is over. My life is ruined. You know, all that kind of stuff is fueling the rumination. It's fueling the need to solve and work out. Now, because I have unconditional self-acceptance and I'm at peace with myself, I haven't got OCD trying to solve things automatically. None of that's there. Because even if I have made a mistake, even if I have done something wrong, I can accept myself unconditionally. So OCD isn't there trying to solve And even if it was, I'm not engaging with that. But it's not there in the first place because I'm truly at peace with myself, even if I have made a mistake. Because I understand I'm a fallible, imperfect human being who has many fallibilities, many flaws. I have many shortcomings. I have many characteristics and traits that could affect my behavior. There's many moving parts as to why I may have done something wrong. The genetics involved, the environmental factors involved, the upbringing, the hereditary components. I mean, there's so many moving parts to a human being. There's so many ingredients that make up the recipe of a human being. It's not as simple as just, you've done bad, you're the worst person ever, get in the bin, lifetime of misery, bye, guilt, forever bye. It's just not that simple, okay? And what we do in one-to-one calls, we take a deeper approach, because OCD is one stubborn bastard. It's a resilient fucker. It is relentless as fuck. So it isn't going to just budge because you want to accept yourself. It isn't going to just go, all right then, mate, yep, I'll let you off. You can accept yourself now because you want to enjoy your holiday. Yep, fine, no worries. You can be at peace. No chance. OCD is going to ramp up. It's going to say, you ain't being at peace, I'm afraid. You've done something wrong, or even thought about doing something wrong. You was even in a position where you had an intrusive urge and you didn't cross the road. How dare you? You are sentenced to a lifetime of guilt and there's no way around that. Bye. That's what OCD is looking to do. Until we start breaking it down. Now, you're going to find that very hard to do by yourself. You're going to find that very hard to break this down by yourself, because always remember this, and this is why I always stress the importance of consistent one-to-one calls. It's not a sales pitch. I'm not trying to sell it to you, but the relentlessness and the resilient nature of OCD is that we often go off track very, very easily. And what I mean by that is that when you're triggered, right? Think when you're locked in the solving, you are so glued in, you're like that, you're so glued in, you're so fixated on what it is you need the answer on, you're not thinking of the bigger picture. You're not thinking of, take a step back and think, right, what is it that I'm scared of here? What is it that I can't accept here? What is it that's terrifying me here? What compulsions am I doing? You're forgetting all that because you're so locked on and you're possessed because you're like, I need the answer. I need certainty. I need relief. I'll do whatever it fucking takes to get relief. I need it. And then you're just straight ahead. Like, imagine you're walking around like that with sort of glued in. You're like blinkers on. Like you let me put my latte down. You're walking around like that. Like, you're forgetting the bigger picture. You're like, nope. You've got tunnel vision on the answer. Tunnel vision on certainty. Tunnel vision to get relief. Nope. I'm getting relief. Whatever it takes, I'm getting relief. And this is where the coach comes and says, hello, excuse me, you realise you won't get relief, you won't get that. You've got a disorder that means that even if you feel like you get relief, it's going to move up, it's going to switch, it's going to move the goalpost, it's going to switch, it's going to change, it's going to find something else. So you're going to get nowhere doing that, I'm afraid. So take the blinkers off and think, oh, hang on a minute, let's take a step back. Where am I going wrong? Let's wear the discomfort. Let's allow the rumination to be present. Let's get comfortable wearing the guilt and shame for now. Okay, OCD's got you, it's hit you, it's found a way in. That's okay, let it do that, and we're going to break it down together. We're going to see all your irrational beliefs that you're holding around your fears, how you're writing yourself off, the self-downing beliefs. I'm a terrible person. I couldn't live with myself if this were true. My life is over forever if this were true. I deserve to be miserable for the rest of my life if this were true. And because of that belief, you then go back into the glued in, no, I need to know. And this is the problem, okay? So the coach comes in and says, no, step back. Let's take our time, foot off the gas. Let's start surrendering. Go, okay, let OCD do what it's going to do. And let's chip away at the beliefs. Let's see why you're so fixated, why you're so locked on, and take that approach. And then trust me, because this is from lived experience, that is how OCD is going to budge. Because then you take the power, you take the sting out of it, right? The reason it stings and hits you so hard is because it's preying on your irrational beliefs. It knows what you're scared of. It knows what you're terrified of, right? So as we start becoming less scared of that by shifting our thinking and our perspectives and our beliefs, then OCD starts taking a back seat, right? We have to deconstruct that internal framework that's made up of the irrational beliefs and the irrational perspectives you currently have. And that's what we will tackle in one-to-one calls. So then OCD starts taking a step back and it's, all right, I can't latch to this now because whoever you are, I was going to say a random name, because you are now not as scared of it because you have started to apply unconditional self-acceptance, even if the worst case was true, even if you have done wrong, even if you have made a mistake. You can truly start to see how unconditional self-acceptance can give you that opening door for your future. And you don't have to endlessly punish yourself. You don't have to endlessly berate yourself forever, because that is so unproductive. It solves nothing. It just leads to unhealthy, negative emotions, which hinders our life and blocks us and holds us back. And this one precious, miraculous life that we've got, we don't want to just be living in misery and anger and guilt and shame and that self-neglect, that self-punishing cycle. It isn't worth that. Okay, life is moving by very quickly. We want to be enjoying it as much as we can, and we're gonna block that enjoyment, and we're gonna block that contentment, and we won't be at peace if we're just engaging in that self-hating, self-pity cycle. So even if you've done something wrong, it's how we can learn to accept ourselves and move on from that. But that isn't agreement. That is not justifying bad behavior. That is not excusing wrong behavior at all. That is often the misconception of unconditional self-acceptance. That is not true at all. And as we break this down on calls, we can see the difference between bad behavior and how, writing yourself off isn't productive whatsoever. And just distinguishing the difference there, which is crucial. All right, so we'll iron out those misconceptions about unconditional self-acceptance on the coaching calls. All right, but you don't have to live locked into the chronic guilt forever. You don't have to live in the chronic shame, in that endless beratement. You don't have to live like that forever. There is hope. And trust me, you're listening to a guy right now that thought he was going to be stuck with chronic guilt forever. Truly. I couldn't see a way out. I couldn't see a way out at all. I thought this was it. I thought my life is doomed with guilt and shame. Every time I tried to distract myself, OCD would be like, get the fuck down, Sam. How dare you distract yourself? How fucking dare you? Who do you think you are? How can you let yourself off the hook? What fucking cheek of you, Sam? How can you do that, right? And that's what I thought. I thought I had a lifetime of that. I truly thought I had a lifetime of that. Until, with the help of Rob and Albert Ellis's work, and just all kinds of tools with rational thinking and unconditional self-acceptance, I could see how even if whatever OCD had latched to, even if it were true, I could be at peace with myself. But that comes with time, and it's going to take patience and ultimately persistence and hard work. So please remember that. But the bottom line of this is that you will not figure anything out. It will remain a failure. You won't be able to do that. You will be unsuccessful. Please don't make the same mistake as I did and spend years and years and years on the merry-go-round, on the OCD carousel of trying to solve, going round and round and round and round and round and round and round. To jump off of that carousel, we have to start breaking that cycle by cutting the compulsions involved with trying to solve it all, and ultimately changing our beliefs to apply unconditional self-acceptance and adopting a more rational way of thinking for OCD to unlatch, because it's stubborn, it's resilient, and it will not budge just by trying to tell ourselves, oh, it's okay, it's fine, it's just my OCD, thoughts are thoughts. That is going to do nothing, absolutely naught on the recovery journey. OCD is going to cut through that, and it will take the piss along the way until we start trying to actually embody and philosophize unconditional self-acceptance. It changed my life. If you are interested in one-to-one coaching calls, please email phil@ocdrecovery.com. My name is Sam. We also have Rob, Nick, Momin, Elliot, and Gemma all doing coaching calls. So please email phil@ocdrecovery.com to get in touch. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please leave a like. I'm going to enjoy this caramel latte, but it's gone a bit cold now, which is a bit annoying. I got a bit carried away chatting, but unconditional caramel latte acceptance. Anyway, guys, you take care and we'll speak again. Bye-bye.